Baladhaku Pre Gopi Jana Pranapa Kiri Baladhati Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Jambuna Tera Manachari Yamuna Tera Manachari Jayarada O Madhava Kunabihate Jayarada Madhava Kunabihate Jai Om Vishnu Pod Paramahansa Paravatikacharya also better. Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Chananana Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Kijai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Kijai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Kijai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Kishai Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath Sayama Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Kijai Vrindavanam Kijai Maturadam Kijai Jagadasami Kijai Yamunamai Kijai Shrimati Tulasi Devi Kijai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Kijai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Kijai Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Budle Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Dejatarni. So we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam today. 10th Canto, 45th Chapter, Text 21. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Pitar Ayuvabhyang Snigdabhyang Bhushitao Lalatao Brichang Pitror Abhyadika Pretir Atma Jeshu Atmano Pi He Pitayuvabhyam Snigda Pitayuvabhyam Snigdabhyam Abhyam Poshita Lalita Brisham Petrorabhyadika Pritir Atma Jeshvatmanopihi Pitaryuvavyam Snigdabhyam Poshita Lalita Brasham Petrorabhyadika Pritir Atma Jeshvatmanopihi Pitaryuvavyam Snigdabhyam Poshita Lalita Brasham Petrorabhyadika Pritir Atma Jeshvatmanopihi. Okay. Anyone else? A bit here. All right. Pitaha. Oh, Father. Yuvabhyam. By you too. Snigdabhyam. Affectionate. Poshitao. Maintained. Ladatao. Coddled. Brisham. Thoroughly. Pitro. For parents. Abhyadika. Greater. Pretty. Love. Atma Jeshu. For their children. Atmana. Than for themselves. Api. Even. He. Indeed. Translation. Krishna and Balaram said, O Father, you and Mother Yashoda have affectionately maintained us and cared for us so much. Indeed, parents love their children more than their own lives. So you can repeat. Krishna and Balaram said, O Father, you and Mother Yashoda have affectionately maintained us and cared for us so much. Indeed, parents love their children more than their own lives. Okay. So there's no commentary by the acharyas who are followers of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, but there's commentaries by the acharyas that came before Srila Prabhupada, such as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Jiva Goswami, and Sanatana Goswami. So we're going to read their commentaries. Balaram, being elder, spoke first in 2 verses. O Father, we were cared for and protected by you two, Nanda Yashoda. That, of course, is natural. Mothers and fathers have excessive affection for offspring of their own bodies. Balaram used the dual form to indicate that Nanda and Yashoda felt the same affection for both children. You were as much my parents as you were Krishna's parents. By revealing this, he also reveals that he cannot remain in the house of unfamiliar Devaki and Vasudeva in the city of Mathura without his two loving parents and his dearmost brother, Krishna. So Jiva Goswami comments, with that purpose in mind, they spoke to Nanda, O Father, you, with the greatest affection, nourished us with food and cared for us by bathing us and doing other services. Since parents, have more affection for their offspring, Atma Jeshu, than for themselves. That is not astonishing. And finally, Sanatana Goswami comments, O Father, he recognizes Nanda as his father. Although Yashoda is not present, he remembers her with great affection, as if she were present, Yuva Vyam. The boys were made blissful by the care and embraces of Nanda and Yashoda, because their affection was causeless, since parents have more affection for their offspring, Atma Jeshu, than for themselves. This negates the idea that they were only foster children, as suggested by the word poshitao, nourished. Interesting. So, Pitaryavabhyam snigdabhyam poshita lalita vrisham pitrorabhyadika pritir atma jeshvatmano pihi. So, omagana tibirandasha gananjana shalakya chakshur unmiritam yeda tasmai shigaraveda maha. So I'm going to talk about body attachments. But before that, I just want to mention one thing, is that actually Krishna is the son of Yashoda Mai and Nanda Maharaj. And just retelling the story that was elaborated on by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that once upon a time, Yashoda Mai gave birth to two children, a boy and a girl. Now, that's not specifically told in the Bhagavatam, but at least the commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and others elaborates on this. And that boy is Krishna. Okay? And pretty much at the same time, we have Devaki, who was with Vasudeva in prison. Actually, there's some versions say that they were in prison. Some versions say that Kamsa let them out of prison temporarily. Anyway, whatever. But they were in Mathura. So Devaki gave birth to Krishna. Oh my God. Two Krishnas there. Well, there's one is an expansion of the other Krishna. And one is called Vasudeva Krishna. That means Krishna who's outside of Vrindavan, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then there's Krishna in Vrindavan, who is also the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but that's not really the most prominent, his prominent feature in Vrindavan. His most prominent feature in Vrindavan is his intimacy with his devotees. So, anyway, to make a long story short, when Vasudeva brought Vasudeva Krishna, remember I'm pronouncing this word, Vasudeva is two different words actually, brought Vasudeva Krishna to Vrindavan to keep him safe in the home of Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, then somehow or other, this is inconceivable, it's Incha Shakti, Vasudeva Krishna and Rajendra Nandana, that is Krishna and Vrindavan, manifested as one. In other words, sometimes you say merge. I don't like the word merge because merge has so many connotations that I don't like. But anyway, they manifested as one, and because Krishna is the original source, Krishna Brajendra Nandana is the original source of all the other manifestations, expansions, and avatars, Vishnu Tattva avatars. So, Advaita Chuta Nadi Radhanta Rupa Madhyam Puranam Purusham Navayovanam Cho. Even though they're all the same, but the most complete understanding of God is in Vrindavan. And so, basically, Krishna is the direct son of Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mai. Okay? And of course, Anyway. And then, of course, Vasudeva brought back the girl with him, who was Yogamaya, sometimes described as Durga, but Yogamaya, Durga is an expansion of Yogamaya. And Kamsa tried to kill her, and she flew up into the air and manifested 8 arms. And Kamsa, the child who was supposed to kill you, has already been born. So that's really why Nanda and Yashoda were actually the real father and mother. Of course, in one sense, from an ontological standpoint, no one is the father and mother of Krishna, right? Because Krishna says, Ham Bija Prada Pita. I'm everyone's father. So how can God have a father? But the reason he acts like he has a father, or has other people believe that they're his parents, is that Krishna wants to enjoy ras. You understand? Ras means the taste of a relationship. Because without relationships, or the taste of a relationship, there's no pleasure in this world. There's absolutely no pleasure. I mean, it's just an illusion of pleasure where we think we can have a relationship with what? Matter. You know, if I have a relationship with this thing, mobile phone, TikTok, of course I don't do TikTok. If I think I can have a relationship with it, it just makes me miserable because the relationship is not satisfying. So here we're talking about a spiritual relationship. And therefore, Krishna puts his devotees into Yogamaya thinking that they're his parents so they can have that deep affection for him. Whereas, as I said ontologically, no one is Krishna's parent. Now, how can you be the parent of God? Because Krishna is the cause of all causes. Sarva Karana Karanam, right? So let's start talking about the other subject I want to talk about from different angles of vision, which is bodily attachment. So often, when we first joined the Krishna conscious movement, we found this sort of bodily attachment discouraged, right? Isn't it true? Bodily attachment. And I'm going to read some verses, not some verses, but some statements by Prabhupada, where Prabhupada really stresses this, and then I'm going to give some counter information where Prabhupada stresses the opposite. So here's a quote from the Gita. The creepiness, miserly person wastes their time in being overly affectionate for family, society, country, etc., in the material conception of life. One is often attached to family life, namely to wife, children, and other members on the basis of skin disease. So these are the sort of verses we were confronted with when we first joined the Krishna conscious movement, right? Skin disease, okay. And the interesting thing, I mean, before I read further, is that we took many of these statements out of context to justify our harsh treating of relatives. And the interesting thing is that attachment, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes, but attachment is in the mode of passion. But we were dealing with this particular subject matter from a mode of ignorance perspective, isn't it? Like repulsion, you know, which is interesting. You know how young people have a habit of being fanatic and taking things out of context and overreacting to things. And certainly due to our, I'm talking about the whole generation, their so-called renunciation, which was like a hippie renunciation, was actually based more on sense gratification than on actual renunciation. Although, on the other hand, it did allow Prabhupada to collect a lot of Western followers. Isn't it? So, you know, you look at the pros and cons of it. That are sort of renouncing our family and parents and everything like that. was not really in the mode of goodness. Although we were using the veneer of a philosophical statement or statements, still it wasn't in goodness. But still, at the same time, Prabhupada used that ignorance to try to increase the fire. And it worked. Prabhupada's strategy, Prabhupada was expert. Anyway. So, this Kripana thinks that he's able to protect his family members from death, or the Kripana thinks that his family or society can save him from the verge of death. Heavy stuff. Such family attachment can be found even in the lower animals, who take care of children also. Being intelligent, Arjuna can understand that his affection for family members and his wish to protect them from death were the causes of his perplexity. Although he could understand that his duty to fight was awaiting him still on account of miserly weakness, he could not discharge the duties. That's Gita, second chapter, text 7. And here's another heavy statement. I'm just going to give the heavy statements first, and then we're going to moderate it a little bit. So here's the story about Indra. Now, Indra, this is one of the typical stories people tell about family attachment. That Indra, one time, he was cursed to become a pig. And so he's cursed to become a pig, so there he is as a pig. Because even any of us could become a pig. We're not these bodies. So he was cursed to become a pig. So he's a pig, and he was in the pig sty. And in the pig sty, he had the sow, that means female pig, and he had all little piglets. You get a lot of piglets with one pregnancy with pigs. So, and so it came time, they wanted him back in the heavenly planets. All right, your curse is over. Time to go back to the heavenly planets. He says, no. Not going back to the heavenly planets. Why not? Because I got so many responsibilities here and attachments. So then somehow or other, it happened that the farmer who was in charge of the pig started killing the family, and then Indra said, I'm going back. So anyway, the moral of the story is that sometimes we see the heavy nature of the material world and see that actually we can't protect people, and although we're thinking we're protecting people. And anyway, we should learn from this. So, and just a few more statements, Sarva Sangam refers to the one stubborn attachment to material objects of so-called enjoyment, such as children, wife, money, nation, and friends. One increases the attachment to children, wife. This is enough to scare anybody out, unless you're a hippie. Attachment to children, wife, and so on. Although supposedly performing devotional service to Krishna is understood to be either a ku-yogi, means a bad yogi, as described in this verse, or a bewildered neophyte who has failed to properly treat the disease of the heart called material attachment. If one has repeated lapses into material attachment, he has failed to eradicate the darkness of ignorance from his heart. That's from the 11th canto. I don't know if I should read any more of these. These are so heavy. But as long as the bodily attachment, is another one, for sensual enjoyment is encouraged, the individual spirit soul is forced to continue the repetition of birth and death on account of the material body, which is compared to the garment subject to the laws of deterioration. That's from the 2nd canto, 6th chapter, text 20. And Kashyapa Muni, another one. This will be the final one, okay? Kashyapa Muni continued, what is the material body made of 5 elements? It is different from the spirit soul. Indeed, the spirit soul is completely different from the material elements from which the body is made. But because of bodily attachment, one is regarded as the husband or son. These illusory relationships are caused by misunderstanding. 8th canto, 16th chapter, text 19. That's all the shocking ones. And then I was listening to a class that Srila Prabhupada was giving. And Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita was making the argument that how can I kill these opposing persons in the battle? I'm just paraphrasing the Bhagavad Gita. When family tradition will be destroyed. So, and I have read, no, actually, Arjuna said I've read, basically in the Vedic literatures, of the importance of family tradition. So, Prabhupada, in his commentary, talks about how important family tradition is. And, and even, attachment. But he says, Arjuna, obviously, there's a higher priority for Arjuna, because Prabhupada talks about, of course, quoting from the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadharmam parityajya mamekam sharanam brajaham tvam sarvapapabhyo mokshayashyami masuchaha. That he's asking Arjuna directly to surrender to him and follow his direction, which involves basically killing some of his family members because they had taken the wrong side and they were creating irreligion in society, his cousin brothers, etc., like the Kurus. So, and also I was thinking of this as Sarvadharman verse, Parityajya. Well, Krishna says, just surrender unto me. Well, we want to give up our duties without actually surrendering to Krishna, and I'm thinking we're surrendering to Krishna. We have this false conception of what it means to surrender to Krishna. Surrendering to Krishna means to do what Krishna wants. And according to most circumstances, one should follow what's called the Kula Dharma, which Prabhupada described as the family tradition. You understand? Because this, and especially, Prabhupada talked quite a bit in the final years about what's called Varnashram Dharma. And I was thinking about this Varnashram Dharma, because usually when devotees talk about Varnashram Dharma, they just connect it, to farming communities, right? Usually in ISKCON, they say, well, we have to institute Varnashram Dharma, let's all move to the farm, which is not going to happen. Not going to happen because, once someone's gone to the city, you can't get them back on the farm, isn't it? Basically. And so, anyway, of course, if there's a war or something, we better be prepared. We better grow some vegetables here, because the supermarkets will not be available. But that's another subject matter. But Varnashram Dharma starts with the not just the Varnas, but the ashrams. And in the ashrams, Krishna gives direction on family attachment, which is good for those in Grahastha ashram, which is the majority of society. Because without the good Grahastha ashram, there is no stability in society. Like we find in the Varnashram system, the sannyasis are like the head, and the Grahasthas are like the stomach. They keep the society stable. Like Prabhupada even said that when he was running his business and he had to hire someone, he wouldn't hire someone who was not married. The reason for that is because someone's not married, they're really fly by night. Isn't it? They get a job, they go on vacation, they fly to India, fly this. But anyway, sorry about that, pointed. Because there's no feeling of responsibility. Of course, nowadays people get married and then there's no feeling of responsibility. They think it's renunciation. But to have a stable society, a Christian society, and that's why Prabhupada in the 8th canto talked about, Gajendra Mokshana's story. To have a stable society, we need people who are attached to doing their duty and love their families. Isn't it? Without that, it's all, you just have hodgepodge, another version of the hippie situation, civilization, so-called civilization, uncivilized civilization. You just have another version of that, and then there's basically no Krishna consciousness in such a situation like that. So then the question arises, so what does that mean? Does that mean that everybody who's in the Grahastha ashram should should just be like completely materially attached and just take another birth? No, because that attachment can be dovetailed in the service of the Lord. Devotees sometimes think that, if you are not attached to doing things nicely, doing your duty nicely, then that's renunciation. Like if you have a car and you don't take care of your car, you don't change the oil, that's your renunciation. But we have to see everything is connected to Krishna. Ishavashamidam sarvam yatkancha jagajam jagat. Everything's owned and controlled by Krishna, and Krishna's given you something, but it's his property. So Krishna is saying you take care of this person, you should be attached to it, attached to them. So the parents should be attached to their children, but at the same time attached to doing the best thing for their children. And they should have happy family life. And Prabhupada said, there was another quote from Prabhupada said, it's not that I'm thinking of family life, I'm just taking up from what I was just hearing from Prabhupada, actually. Prabhupada said that you Westerners don't know what happy family life is. It's a fact. I mean, the nuclear families, nuclear doesn't mean they're going to explode. It means that, just the husband and wife. And I've seen in my dealings with many people from Indian culture, Fiji, of course, spent a lot of time in Fiji, how tight the families are with the mother and the father and everything. It's in a very loving relationship. Like I'll just give you an example. One disciple in Fiji whose mother is just, he wants to move to, where does he want to move to? He wants to move to Australia to better his life, material life. But he can't go without his mother. He's not going to go without his mother. So it's just, there's much more love in that particular situation and stability in that particular situation. Whereas, the Western frame of mind, one can easily, reject one's guru, reject one's wife, reject one's husband, like that. And it's very dysfunctional, and it doesn't lead to Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada did say, he did extol the virtues of Kula Dharma, family tradition, because that keeps the family together. And of course, specifically, as we were just mentioning, there's Varnashram Dharma, which is taken as a duty, whatever your ashram is. Like if you're a sannyasi, obviously you stick to that. You don't get into family attachment. But even Lord Chaitanya loved his mother, isn't it? Right when he took sannyas, he went to Dvaitacharya's house. Of course, he was tricked to go to a Dvaitacharya's house. But after he went to a Dvaitacharya's house, his mother came to cook for him. And he said to his mother, he said, this body is your property because you produced this body. And, he was apologizing to his mother, out of some, whatever it is. I took sannyas, so I really can't go back home. But please give me a place to live. You order me, isn't it? It's amazing. You order me. So Lord Chaitanya is known as a great devotee of his mother. So he said, you order me and I'll live where you want. And I suggest Jagannath Puri because that way you'll get notice of me all the time, and it's close and people are coming and going all the time between Jagannath Puri and Bengal. So in this way, he was showing his affection for his mother, isn't it? And as far as his wife's affection for him, she was so affectionate to Lord Chaitanya. So, in other words, that affection, of course, he's God, and that affection is in relationship with God. But if we are affectionate in the Grihastha ashram and other ashrams between the devotees, I mean, even if you're not a Grihastha, you're sannyasi or something, you should be affectionate to the devotees. I mean, appropriately. Rupa Goswami talks about loving exchanges, right? Dadati pratigunati guyam akyati prichati. The devotees giving prasad, in an appropriate fashion. Obviously, a sannyasi doesn't embrace ladies. Nor should grahastas be embracing people who they're not married to. Men should not be embracing women and they're not married to. It's just not appropriate. And vice versa. But still, there should be affection between devotees. We care for devotees. This is not, bodily attachment, but it's spiritual attachment. And, we give prasadam, accept prasadam, give gifts, accept gifts, reveal the mind in confidence. And, there has to be some... Thank you very much. You are very kind. He cares. There is a caring devotee. So, that's Krishna consciousness. And if parents should be very attached to their children. Prabhupada said and we can look at that attachment and see, and of course it has to be spiritualized, but we should look at that attachment and see, as an example, that's how we should be with Krishna, spontaneous, Like Prabhupada said, the closest thing to pure love in this world is the love of a mother for a child. And then the children will grow up in a functional way, because children who grow up without love in other type of situation where they don't have that particular parental love, they become very dysfunctional, and they're not capable of exhibiting that particular love themselves when they grow older. So anyway, this is just giving a little counterpoint to this detachment. So we become detached by being attached for Krishna, for a higher purpose. That's the point. Be attached to taking care of even your car nicely, because it belongs to Krishna. So if you see everything as belonging to Krishna, then your attachment increases, but it's not material attachment. The difference between material attachment and spiritual attachment is, in material attachment, you're attached to the object to try to enjoy it. In spiritual attachment, you're attached to trying to use if it's an object in Krishna's service, or engage the person, if it's a person in Krishna's service, and attached to seeing them come closer to Krishna. So that attachment can be purified. So, on that happy note, any questions or comments? Yes. Well, we can learn that. We can learn, even if we didn't have a functional family background, then we can learn from Prabhupada. In one sense, Prabhupada is, either our father or grandfather, and we can get that love, understand that from Prabhupada's coddling us, just like this word coddling. Haribo. So, just like this word coddling is used here, let me go back to the verse, which is really interesting. I found that quite interesting. Prabhupada translate. It's not Prabhupada's translation, but anyway, the translation is coddling. Coddled, yeah. Lalitao, coddled. So, coddle means, anyway, it's hard to give a definition to the word. Do you have a definition for coddling? Like caring for them and just being doting and everything like that, and just whatever you like, we'll give you. And so that's how the parents should be with the kids. In Krishna consciousness. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously, to follow Varnashram according to the strict rules and regulations of Varnashram is impossible in Kali Yuga. However, the point I was making about the Grahastha ashram, is very important in Varnashram Dharma. So that's something I believe very sincerely Prabhupada wanted because he was stressing Varnashram Dharma, the stability of society. Okay.
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvanta Maravindanalaya Taksham Varhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundaranam Kandar Ako Vitamaniya Vishesha Shobha Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Andani Yasa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Vasyan Dipan Dikayanti Jiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami
Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Namaham Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasnaya Motanai Shimate Bhakti Vedanta Zamaniti nomine. Srimate Bhaktivedanta Ameniti nomine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvane Pacha Rine Visesha Shunyavade Pashachade Satarane. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Sivasati Gurmakta Vrinda Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Sivasati Gurmakta Vrinda Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Sivasati Gurmakta Vrinda. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Sivasati Gurmakta Vrinda. Shri Advaita Gadada Sivasati Gurmakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama. Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Haji Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopal Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hare Govinda Jaya Jaya. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Radharamana Hare Govinda Jaya Jaya. Jaya Radha Goloka Radha Goloka Ragate. Jaya Radha Goloka Goloka Ragate. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Radhe Rayo, Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Radhe Rayo, Radhe Rayo, Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Sri Radhe, Hey Jai Om Vishnupad.
Vamidrishami Hajjanina Raga Nadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Va Jagadishakamaye Mama Janmani Janmani Ishvare Bhavatad Bhaktir Hoitaki